What if the world you see, the reality you experience every single day, isn't the original? What if this whole thing is just an echo, a copy of something far, far grander? And that's the wild idea we're going to get into today. Yeah, that one sentence, that's pretty much the heart of this mind-bending idea called holographic entropic receipt theory, or HERT for short. It's suggesting our entire universe isn't the main event, but it's more like the proof of purchase, a record of a transaction that's already happened. So let's really lean into that. What if we are, right now, living inside a compressed file, a lower resolution version of a much richer, higher dimensional existence? Okay, so to get our heads around that, we first need to understand what the theory even means by a low-resolution reality. And honestly, the core idea is way more familiar than you might think. Okay, so HERT, it says our 3D universe is a lossy copy. Now, if you've ever saved a picture as a JPEG, you know what lossy means. It's when you deliberately throw away some of the data to make the file smaller, right? So our reality is like that, a simplified, more manageable version of something way, way more complex. Think about it like this. The original higher dimensional source, what the theory calls the pluriforma, that's like a live guitar signal, you know? It's got all this richness, all this nuance. Our reality? We're the low-bit MP3. I mean, you can still tell what the song is, but all that depth, it's just gone. It's the difference between a stunning 4K movie and some grainy, pixelated video you're trying to stream. All right, so if our universe is a compressed file, the obvious next question is, how did it get made, right? What's the cosmic machine that's doing all this compressing? Well, the theory lays out this four-step process. First, there's a trigger, basically a request to measure the higher D field. Then that information gets projected down, collapsing all its complexity. I mean, a good way to picture it is like taking a 3D object and just tracing its flat 2D shadow. That's kind of the idea. This new, simpler pattern is then encoded and locked into our reality, which takes energy. And all that info that got left behind, it's just dissipated, pushed out as heat and disorder. It's like cosmic exhaust.
And this all boils down to a fundamental rule, which you're seeing in this equation right here. It's basically cosmic bookkeeping. All it's really saying is that to create the order we see here in our 3D world, you gotta pay for it. You have to export an equal or greater amount of disorder or entropy somewhere else. The universe's books, they always have to balance.
Okay, this is a really cool theory, right? But is there any proof, any physical evidence? Well, proponents say, yeah, maybe. They think we can find the fingerprints of this whole compression event by looking at the oldest light in the universe, the cosmic microwave background. So scientists mapped the CMB, and they pretty much expected it to be smooth, uniform. But it wasn't. Instead, they found over 153,000 anomalous pixels. These are just points of light that don't fit our standard models at all. Now, HERT says these are errors. They're informational artifacts, little glitches left over from the rendering process. And among all those glitches, one really stands out. This huge area of the sky that is way, way colder, which means more ordered than it has any right to be. We're talking a deviation of -17 sigma. And just for context, anything over 5 sigma is usually considered a we need to rewrite the textbooks kind of discovery. So yeah, this is statistically staggering. The theory calls this a coherence echo point, a fossilized remnant of some massive ordering event at the dawn of time. And here's the other side of that cosmic receipt. For that crazy cold spot, there's a matching hot spot, a zone of extreme disorder. This is the thermodynamic exhaust we were talking about. It's the compensating entropy that was pushed out to pay for the order created in the cold spot. See? The books balance. So, okay, we have a what and we have a potential how. But that brings us to the biggest, wildest question of all, where the theory really steps out of physics and into pure speculation. Why? If this really happened, what was the point?
And the theory lays out a whole range of possibilities here, from the kind of mundane to the truly bizarre. On one end, it could just be a natural process, right? Like a cosmic pressure release valve for a field of information that got overloaded. But on the other end of the spectrum, it could be engineered. Maybe our reality is a simulation built to preserve information. Or, and this is where it gets a little disturbing, maybe it's an entropic farm designed to harvest some specific kind of energy from the creatures living inside it.
But look, this theory doesn't just stop with the cosmos. It goes way deeper. And it has some pretty profound things to say about consciousness itself. Because if our reality is just a compressed copy, what does that make us? HERT actually proposes there are two types of coherence nodes, or, people. You've got native-born coherence, whose consciousness is generated entirely within this 3D system. But then you have imported coherence. These are supposedly fragments of consciousness from that original higher-dimensional reality that have been inserted into the simulation. These are the people who might carry what the theory calls ghost harmonics. Those intuitions, those feelings, those ideas that just seem a little too big for this world. And this is where the theory takes an even darker turn, linking up with ancient Gnostic myths. These were old mystical texts that warned about a flawed creator, an archon, trapping souls in a material world. HERT kind of reframes this idea for the modern day, suggesting a potential control system run by these archons designed to farm a specific type of psychic energy that comes from suffering. Sometimes it's called louche. Now, to keep control, a system like that would need a way to recycle consciousness, right? To get people to come back. And check out this quote from a near-death experience. The person describes a love so overwhelming that it was actually terrifying, a total loss of self. The theory has a pretty chilling name for this, the love lure. It speculates that this overwhelming love isn't some beautiful glimpse of heaven, but a powerful system tool. An affective compression event that's specifically designed to erase a soul's resistance, make it compliant, and guarantee that it returns to the system. Think about it. The most effective control isn't fear, it's seduction. So when you put all these pieces together, the physics, the cosmology, the metaphysics, reality itself starts to look less like a place and way more like a process. And that's the bottom line. HERT reframes the whole idea of creation. The Big Bang wasn't a beginning. It was a transaction. It was the moment where perfect static coherence was intentionally degraded, compressed, and traded to generate the very building blocks of our experience, meaning, memory, and the forward march of time. Which leaves us with one last, really provocative question to think about. If our whole universe is the receipt, and our lives are the individual lines being written on it, what transaction are you recording? What's the cost? And what's ultimately being bought?